Yesterday, before this third Canadian was detained in China, that was confirmed. I had a chance to talk with Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland about the two in captivity, and we had a wide-ranging interview about Canada on the world stage. Here it is. All right, this was the year when Foreign Affairs became the government's firefighters, with the minister trying to put out political brush fires all over the map for her work on the new NAFTA, taking on Saudi Arabia, coping with China, and a lot more. Chrystia Freeland gets our top spot as Power Player of the Year and gets a free Power Play coffee mug.
I shall cherish this, Darren. Sure. Thank you very much.
Look, you've had access to these Canadian detainees in China, your consular access, that is. Do you believe they're going to be freed before this Huawei issue is over, or do you think that has to be resolved before they're on their way home?
You're right that Ambassador McCallum has been to see them, and I do want to say, John, who you know well also, is doing a really fantastic job, and I'm really grateful to him in complicated circumstances. In my conversations with the Chinese authorities, in all of our government's conversations with the Chinese authorities, they have drawn no connection between these detentions and the detention of Ms. Meng. We've also been really clear, and this is a point that we've been at pains to emphasize with China, that Ms. Meng is being treated respectfully in Canada, that she is being accorded full due process. In fact, as you know, Don, she's been released on bail. And we've also really taken care to explain that this process thus far has not been at all politicized. There has been no political interference. It hasn't been politicized by us. This has been about Canada following the rule of law and about Canada abiding by its commitments in an extradition treaty. And as to the south of the border, we've also been very clear that Canada does not believe that extradition processes should be politicized or used for political ends. And we make that very clear to our extradition partners as well. Extradition is a criminal justice process. It shouldn't be politicized. It will not be politicized by Canada, and we expect it not to be politicized by our extradition partners.
What did Ambassador McCallum say to you or tell your officials about how they're treated, the two detainees in China? Are they treated well, as far as you can tell?
You know, I do want to say my heart goes out to both of them and to their families. I've spoken personally with family members of both men, and I want to say to them, this issue is my absolute priority. The Prime Minister is very seized of it also. We're glad that we have had consular access, and we are going to be, you know, constantly on it in terms of the Chinese authorities knowing how much Canada cares for these two Canadians and how much we're watching.
Okay, but detainees in China are different than people on bail in Vancouver. What kind of conditions are they in? Are they in a work camp, prison cell? Where are they?
They're in Chinese detention.
That's not a good thing.
No, it's not a good thing.
That's not a
it's absolutely not a good thing.
Hospitable environment at all.
I think that's exactly right, and that's why Canada is so seized of these cases. And again, I want their families, if they're listening, to know what a priority this is for the Government of Canada. We're talking about it with our partners around the world. I was in Washington on Friday together with Minister Sajjan, and we raised this issue very prominently with Secretaries Pompeo and Mattis. I also raised it with Ambassador Lighthizer. So we are very, very focused on the issue.
I didn't want to bring up Saudi Arabia. You boldly tweeted something that got the Saudis very upset, but now we're dealing with a bigger question. The Prime Minister was saying on the weekend to Evan Solomon that he's looking for a way to deal with this contract for these labs. $13 billion, thousands of jobs. How do you say no to a deal that gives that much economic benefit, that many economic benefits to us, and we'll probably just have Saudi Arabia go, okay, there's going to be a penalty for that for Canada, and we'll buy them somewhere else?
So we've been really clear since the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, and you know, let's remember there's a person involved here, a person who was really gruesomely murdered in premeditated fashion. Have you heard the tape, by the way? Not personally, no.
Okay.
But truly horrific. And that's an issue which is important for Canadians. I think it's important for many people around the world. And so at that point, our government said, and we've been saying consistently, that first of all, a transparent and credible international investigation is absolutely essential. That we find the explanations we've heard from Saudi Arabia thus far to be neither consistent nor coherent. We have sanctioned 17 Saudis who we believe either were directly involved in or complicit in the murder. But we don't consider this case to be closed. And as we've said, since the murder, that at that point it was really necessary for us to say as a government that we need to review our arms sales to Saudi Arabia. During that period of review, so right now, no new export permits are being issued, and we're reviewing existing contracts.
Okay. I do want to talk about NAFTA. I'm not 100% certain how the new Congress, is going to deal with this. Are you? I mean, do you think there's any doubt that this deal will get approved by the House, for example, in Congress, and that, or do you think you'll have some more tweaks coming your way?
Well, as you know, Don, because I felt you were alongside me in covering this.
Long distance.
We worked a lot on NAFTA. Team Canada was extremely engaged. There were moments when I felt that every single Canadian was involved in the negotiation. And we got there in the end. And Canada's role was to negotiate a good deal with Ambassador Lighthizer, who by U.S. law is our American counterparty. It was not easy, but we got there in the end. The next step is domestic ratification processes in Canada, in Mexico, and in the U.S. And at this point, it's up to Ambassador Lighthizer to handle the ratification process in the U.S. As I mentioned, I saw him last Friday. It's my job, and the Prime Minister's, of course, to handle ratification here in Canada, and it is the new Mexican administration. Actually, I spoke with the Mexican new Economy and Trade Minister last week as well. Well, each government is responsible for its own ratification process, and I think, there's a sovereignty issue here. I don't think that we would appreciate the Americans opining on NAFTA ratification in Canada, so I think we leave this job, which is their job, up to them.
You're a former journalist, so you can't hide your news instincts forever on this one because of political correctness. What was the biggest story of the year in the world, in your view?
Oh my God, that is a good question. What was the biggest story of the year? I would say trade in general, and the subsets of trade are NAFTA, Brexit, and now China-US. I think there is a very great questioning by people of trade. This sort of surge of populism is often allied with a protectionist sentiment. And there's also a potential shifting of the tectonic plates in how different countries of the world relate to one another. And, we Canadians have been very involved because of our renegotiation of NAFTA, but that is far from the only big relationship which is in play. And then, a part of that is also the WTO. Right,
and if Canada, or if the U.S. and China really start slugging it out, we're going to have some collateral damage north of the border, aren't we?
Well, I think the U.S. and China are the world's two first and second largest economies. Right. Inevitably, any effort between the two of them to recalibrate their trading relationship is going to have ripple effects for everybody.
Well, listen, it's been a heck of a busy year. I hope you don't have quite as busy next year. I hope you get to home with your family for a change.
I have ordered my turkey.
Yes.
We are planning to wet brine ours. I don't know about you, Don.
Well, keep calm and party over the holidays to change your focus. And thanks very much for joining us. And congratulations, Power Player of the Year, Chrystia Freeland.
Thank you, Don.